to the Game Club podcast. I'm your host, Sweet Johnny Cage. And joining me today is a great panel of guests, and we're going to be talking about the game Undertale today. On our panel, we have Honzo Gonzo.
What's up?
Honzo? There you go. And then we have James Kincaid. How are you?
I didn't gain any love, but I hope to gain love.
Wow. Okay. And then we have Hagure, aka Terry. How are you, Terry?
Yo, what's good, y'all?
All right. And then joining us, Kenny, where are you located right now? Are you in Japan?
Orlando, my friend.
Oh, you're in Orlando. Okay, I was going to say joining.
That's right. I'm doing the American wrestling thing now.
Oh, right. Okay. So, as Kenny alluded to, from All Elite Wrestling fame, joining us on this panel is Kenny Omega. How are you, Kenny?
Doing well, my friend. How about you guys?
Wonderful.
Aside from the search for love.
The search for love. Have we all completed the search for a vaccine? Have we all done that?
Yep, I'm all plugged up. My signal's great.
Yeah, we got that 5G coming in strong.
Yeah.
That's actually.
I'm wondering why my internet was so good.
Are we all in America, by the way? Because I think that's one great thing about the country, at least where I live here in Orlando. It's readily available and it's easy to get vaccinated.
Yep. Same here in the New York area.
One good thing pretty much anywhere. Say about the current state of affairs.
Yeah, I mean, imagine Obama and the FCC just had to fly to Hawaii from Japan to get a vaccine. So that's the state of it over there right now. But yeah.
Well, cool. Well, this is actually our first Game Club podcast post-vaccine. So definitely want to bring that up. We're living in a new era now. Like I mentioned, this show is all about Undertale. We will get into Deltarune later on in the show, which is the next game from the creator. But I'm sure that'll come up throughout. Undertale was released on September 15th back in 2015, almost 6 years ago, originally for PC, but then ported to most platforms out there. So just Google it, you can find it. It was a Kickstarter game, which I only just recently learned. It raised $51,000, which the original target was $5,000. But given the success of this game, that sort of blew me away, that it was only a $5,000 game. And then, of course, went 10x on the Kickstarter. But did anybody here donate to the Kickstarter or back the game or even know about it at that time?
Oh, hell no. I had no clue. Yeah, I didn't know. I mean, these things, as you know, game projects turn up all the time on Kickstarter. And a lot of the times I'm real late to the party. And games that are funded and people that are getting all this extra bonus content. I think the one that I actually did hear about and made sure to donate to was Bloodstained. That was really the only one. Yeah. But of course, I mean, there's some name notoriety with that one. So that's probably why I was able to turn up on my feed and all that. But there are a ton of games. I mean, I wished I would have donated to Dead Cells or Hades, games like that. But alas, I did. I donated to Shenmue as well. I did. Nice. I donated a ton to Shenmue. And
how did you feel about that investment?
well, if I'm to speak honestly, I just wanted to see the project come to a close. Like I want closure for the fans. I want closure for the universe. And that when the game finally was released, I had already moved, and it's sitting in the plastic or in the box in Canada right now. So I haven't even played it. I have heard that people, found it a little underwhelming, but I didn't even really take a deep dive into reviews or to hear what people were saying about it, because I still do plan to play it at some point.
Sure. There's nothing wrong with an average game, man. Like there's
absolutely
plenty of them out there.
I know we're here to talk about Undertale, but I'm glad that Shenmue has come up, because there's a guy. Whenever I see him at shows I'm working, the first thing I say to him is, "I'm looking for a man named Lon D."
Oh, that's great.
Shenmue fans.
The thing is, though, I mean, speaking a little bit about Shenmue, I was in a real dark place at one point in time in my career, and Shenmue was one of the games that kind of pulled me out of it, so I could live like vicariously in this different kind of world, and it made me look forward towards something. That was for Shenmue 1 for Dreamcast. So I always sort of felt like, I guess, a responsibility to anything Shenmue related to keep that dream alive. Yeah. Even though I didn't really enjoy Shenmue 2, again, Shenmue 1 was such an incredible experience. And until this tale of revenge has been seen through until the bitter end, and I don't know where it leaves off on 3, I didn't look at any spoilers. I haven't heard anything about it aside from just looking at a couple screenshots that were provided for the Kickstarter stuff. If there's a 4, if there's a 5, I'll keep donating because I know there's a lot of fans that want closure to this thing.
It's interesting to think of how Kickstarter as a like a platform can extend the life of games and also give life to like a series that's so big like Undertale. Like thinking back on it, this is a game that might have been funded just like minimally and then maybe made a small impact. But since Kickstarter, has the platform where you can donate and raise money over the limit, then you can extend the life of the game, similar to something like Shenmue, where Shenmue 3 probably would never have existed without Kickstarter. And it, as you said, it brought closure to an entire story.
Right.
So it's really cool to think of Kickstarter as like an extension of the game industry, as well as like a really big part of providing games, just the existence of them coming about from it.
Yeah, and with those stretch goals and stuff, you sort of are able to maybe have some like pocket ideas, like just weird things to add, and then once the money starts going over your initial goal, that stuff just becomes a lot easier.
Yeah, and that being said, I think Bloodstained sucked dick. So maybe
we have to do a show about that game.
Wait, whoa. What? Are you serious?
Yeah, I don't like Bloodstained. I've played it and I did not enjoy it.
That being said, did you play? So I thought it was okay. I remember rating my top 10 games of the year, and I think it barely entered the top 10. However, it may not have. Actually, you know what I did? What did enter the top 10 was the 8-bit version.
Yeah.
Oh yes. So the 8-bit version is good.
So good.
The 8-bit version is good. I will say.
And the part 2 of that is also very, very good.
Yeah, limited run games put out physical releases of both of those.
But yeah, the normal sort of Bloodstained. I mean, it was. I saw where they're going with it. I got it. I did finish it, but very forgettable, unfortunately.
We'll have to get you on the. We're gonna do a show about that eventually, so we'll have to get you on there.
I'm in.
Because I was one of the ones who loved it, and most people didn't. But anyway, back to Undertale.
Yeah.
So I wanted to go around the horn and get everybody's first impressions about the game, whether or not that was just first impression of playing it or just seeing it for the first time. Terry, let's start with you.
So for me, kind of like Kenny, I'm not really in tune with like, what the current biggest game is. So I saw Undertale, way after the Kickstarter, and after it had kind of, gotten like a notorious status in the gaming community. And I just remember seeing like all these, like black and white, simple graphics characters. I'm like, what is this? Why is everybody posting these? There's skeletons everywhere. Like, what's the new meme? And then, just gradually, I don't remember where exactly, but just word of mouth, I was hearing about this game, and it's like, it's crazy because like, even if, you restart the game and you try, you're going through the story, like you can't, just the fact that you saved here or the fact that you restarted here, like the game knows, like the game always knows like where you are. So you can't like go back, like, and like redo things in a way that you normally would with other RPGs. So I was like, oh, that's really intriguing. And for myself, I really love the kind of like the Super Nintendo era RPGs, JRPGs, like Earthbound, definitely one of my favorites. And the creator of Undertale has
heavy Earthbound inspirations.
Yeah, has mentioned so many times that Earthbound, and I believe like a lot of the early assets from Undertale actually came from Toby Fox's, the creators. Like he made like an Earthbound ROM hack. And some of like the music, some of the characters and stuff kind of came from that. So once I heard Earthbound and just this intriguing gameplay, I was hooked, and then I just went in and had a blast of the time.
As a side note, has anyone here played that ROM hack that Toby Fox had originally created for Earthbound?
No.
Negative.
Yeah, I have not.
I do plan to. It's a very Halloween themed kind of grotesque adult themed take on the on Earthbound, which he had suggested to me that I should play it, but he said that when he had made it, he was sort of a ruffian teenage boy with a lot of angst, a lot of teen angst that went into that project. So he said he's not terribly proud of it. He said, but he thinks that there's still positive things to take from the experience.
Yeah, lessons learned in the development.
Right, exactly.
Totally. Honzo, how about you? What did you think when you first saw the game?
Similar to Terry, I came pretty late in regards to the game, and I actually played it when it was when it had a lot of hype around it, and then I stopped. I just straight up stopped playing it after the first after the Papyrus fight. And I just didn't return until actually this past year during quarantine. I was like, I should probably finish that. And so I went back and just played it. And I think the initial reason why I played it, honestly, I remember like the save scum, like you can't save scum, and like there's like save like awareness was like a big deal when it first came out, like in regards to like people communicating about the game. That's always something I remember. And then of course Sans was like kind of a meme to a degree, and has only become further a meme due to the extended universes that spawned off of Undertale. I remember just like I don't know why I put it down, but after I picked it back up again, I played through most of the game and I just loved it. I think, you know, it's one of the better games I've ever played, as well as the music is probably top 5 soundtracks of all time. Yeah, I rate it really highly after replaying it.
Yeah, it's amazing how much just the soundtrack can influence the entire experience and memory that still
it's wild. The soundtrack's crazy.
Yeah, like Earthbound is probably one of my favorite games, and I also believe with Earthbound as well that it's one of my favorite soundtracks. You know, it all goes hand in hand. And I would say the least important factor for me, now that I'm kind of thinking about my top 5 or 10 games, a lot of the times it's not because they pushed the graphics engine too hard, or that it did something sort of late breaking or cutting edge with the graphics. It's never visuals for the most part. Mostly like art, sound, and of course experience.
Yeah, I think art style is super important. And then like you can even just go look through the game. Like even the first couple of enemies in the ruins it's just like a it's just like a frog. And
Right.
you know, and then a dummy that just doesn't really do anything.
Yeah.
So like even then you kind of get sucked into it. But then like if you just transfer to one area over and it's Snowden, there's just like wild dogs that are kissing, and you know, like an alien, the Jerry guy or whatever, a dog in armor, and then it's kind of hooks you with the humor of it. And it's kind of like a very absurd start. The music for me is just it's just kind of crazy. We'll talk about it more, I guess, later. But yeah, that's when I first heard of it.
James, how about you? What was your first impression of the game?
Well, I'm a game club success story because Chris Seglia told me about this. Like, hey, you got to play Undertale, and then you got to be on the podcast about it. And I was like, okay. I actually completely missed the hype train on the game, but a couple months ago, he told me about it, and I was like, all right, let me check this out. I love RPGs, and I think I was immediately just sort of struck by the sort of wholesome feeling of the game. Like as soon as, you know, Toriel's like helping you out, it's like, oh, I want to see where this goes. So it gets pretty sort of I guess I got attached to the characters pretty early on, and that really struck me. The music, as others have said, is obviously another standout of it, but the sort of absurdist humor and storytelling and the characters just really sort of are what I take away from the game. And I was just determined to finish it. And I'm bad at it. Like I will cop to, I'm not very good at this game in terms of like the battle mechanics, but I had a lot of fun playing it.
Kenny, I feel like we've all sort of been chiming in here, but did we get your first impressions?
No. Okay, but I'm more than willing to share.
Yeah,
so,
please.
As it so happens, when I was working for New Japan in Japan, one of women that I had worked with extensively in my interviews and media and stuff, her main job was so she had a ton of jobs. So she worked as a translator. She was an aspiring novelist. She also worked alongside Shigesato Itoi, who created Mother series. And upon hearing that, I kind of told her, hey, you know, like as a genius, I wish at some point I could just have a chat with him. What he accomplished through the gaming medium, his storytelling was paramount. I would say to this day, there aren't many people who came from another sort of job. He was always just a writer. I wouldn't say I've literally have no idea who kind of came over to the gaming world being musician, a novelist, or a lawyer, and just decided, hey, I'm going to make a video game, and created a game to this day, a game series to this day that people still talk about and still love and hold in high regard. She had said, hey, I'm going to try to set something up. He's a nice guy, and there's a good chance he might want to talk to you. He goes, but in the meantime, there's this game. It's called Undertale, and I met these nice individuals, and they wanted to pass along this game to Itoy to play. But we got a bunch of codes, and if you want to try it, here it is. So the game, of course, was Undertale, and I downloaded it. I left it on my PlayStation forever. Hadn't touched it. I would say it took over maybe close to a year. And then finally, I remember, for whatever reason, like, my internet went out, and just sitting on my PlayStation, and I felt like playing something. And at that time, I think I was playing like a combination of a lot of Street Fighter and Blackout, Call of Duty, just pretty much all online experiences. But what am I going to do? I don't want to play those games offline, really. You know? I fired this game up, and I saw right away what made it so special, and why. I saw the influences right away, and I saw how this was very different from everything else that came before it and everything else in the market right now. And the one thing I remember is the big thing that hooked me was in the beginning, when you're sort of forced into this fight with Toriel, and I guess just based on sort of previous RPG experience, I'm like, okay, you forced me to fight you. I guess I got to fight you, and we'll move on with this story. You know what I mean? I never thought anything of it. And when I realized what I had done after defeating Toriel, I said, like, fuck this, man. Like, that's not how I want to go out. This is terrible. I'm just gonna pretty much yank the cord from my PlayStation, and I'll fire it back up. And the game knew what I had done, and kind of said, like, hey, there's no going back. You have to live with your decisions. I thought, oh boy, okay, this is going to be something special. And from that point on, I was hooked. And it wasn't even, I pretty much committed at that point. Like, even if there are lull points, I'm gonna power through it. But there weren't any lull points, because I was invested in every character. And anytime that there was like travel between point A to point B, there was enough dialogue, very quirky, interesting, funny, entertaining dialogue between you and the characters, whether it be main characters or even just the random enemies that you meet, that there was never a dull moment. So yeah, that was generally my first experience with the game.
Yeah, I think that first boss fight, in quotes, with Toriel is like super powerful, because like I heard when I started playing that you could do it pacifist, so I actually tried to do it, but for whatever reason, the Toriel fight, I couldn't figure out how to do a pacifist, so I just killed her, and I just felt super bad about it. And then the game just kept reminding you, hey, remember when you killed your mom? It's like, shit, dude. Yeah, I think sticking it at the very start of the game and the implications of the story, as well as like Sans reminding you, even if it's the only person you killed, right, near the end, it's a very powerful moment to get you hooked, for sure.
So my first impression of the game was the graphics were minimalist, which I dug. I immediately got like an Earthbound vibe from it. Just the way you like walk through the terrain felt very Earthbound. Something about the scrolling just felt very familiar, like the actual scrolling of the screens. And I really enjoyed the combat choices, like just not like you guys are talking about, like pacifist runs, like just being able to not kill things and just dismiss them. And I like that you still at least got money from doing that. Like, you didn't get XP, but you didn't really need XP because you didn't have to be stronger to dismiss anything. But you still got the gold. I like that they still kept a reward in there. That said, I think when we get to the gameplay section later, I'm gonna have a very different opinion than you guys, because like I did not feel like this game was as great as a lot of people think. So I'm excited to get into that. Before we do, though, I want to talk about the plot. So generally, you play as a kid who, in the beginning cutscene, falls into a pit, into what is essentially the world of monsters. Honzo, can you take us through the general plot of the game after that?
Yeah, so you start in the ruins. You basically have no friends. You meet a strange flower who's kind of a dick. And then you meet Toriel, who is very nice and guides you through the ruins. And then the game essentially forces you to kill her after she has been nothing but nice to you. And then you have to venture out into the world of monsters and go through various like towns and places in order to try and get out of the underground. And in doing so, you encounter a lot of monsters and other characters and unravel a plot in regards to what has happened down here. Why are the monsters so hostile? Why are they killing children? And all this stuff. And eventually meet up with the king, who regretfully fights you, and then you basically kill him and escape. But that's not where the plot technically ends. And then you can sort of replay it as the final boss fight is with the flower at the end, who is a reincarnation of the king's son. It gets a little complicated, but
oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah. Basically, after that, you can play through the game again with the in a pacifist route, and you'll get more story out of that. And then even after that, you can play in a genocide route, which is where you just kill literally every enemy, and it's very sad and kind of fucked up because you can see the enemies disappear throughout the overworld and all that stuff. And that unlocks other boss fights and even music like Megalovania. I know it's like very, very popular, but that's locked behind the genocide route, actually.
I kept playing the game waiting for that song to come on, and it literally never did.
Yeah, it's kind of wild how popular that song is, because if you think about it, it's locked behind most of the content.
Yeah.
And I'm gonna say probably not even 10 to 5% of people have done the content to view the song, but then
absolutely not. There's no way.
Yeah.
It's just like one of the most popular songs from the game and in video games right now, currently, probably. Megalovania is incredibly, transcendental, and it's even in Smash Brothers.
Yeah, it's pretty notorious.
Yeah. It's kind of wild to think of, like YouTube as a platform.
I made an entrance to that song.
You did?
Really?
Yeah. I did. Halloween.
That was when you were dressed up as Sans, right?
I was. Yep.
Am I mistaken in thinking that Toriel is the queen?
Yes. Toriel is like referenced as the queen, I believe.
Yeah, and her like throne is under that right. Covering at the end.
Okay. Is there any route in the game where, because I killed her as well, is there any way to not kill her and then maybe she shows up?
Yeah. So after the first time you play the game, if you do, it allows you to play it again, and you do a pacifist route where you can technically save her, I believe.
It's funny, I didn't kill her at the start.
Yeah, you don't have to
always save her.
Yeah. But the game forces you. When I say forces, I mean it uses your knowledge of RPGs against you, and it's like, this is a boss fight, kill this motherfucker, and you're like, wait, I don't want to. And then like
the first option is attack always.
Yeah, so it's kind of nefarious, but also genius in its design, because you're saying you didn't kill her. Well, I tried to not kill her, and I ended up having to because I was dying. So it's like, well,
It's funny that you say that because it totally preys upon that aspect in the early going, and you definitely don't want to. I think, like, I figured out they were trying to trick me. I think probably because I was so meticulous in going through her house and just looking at everything. And there was something, I forget exactly what the dialogue was that she said, but it was something about like the path. You have to understand the path that you have to take, which is why I was like, oh, okay, this is like, you're not supposed to kill anything. Like, this is a peaceful type deal. And that was the only way. But it definitely felt like, okay, they're trying to flip everything you've learned from RPGs on its head a little bit.
Terry, how did you feel about the plot?
Yeah, the plot, man. For me, it's definitely one of the strongest points in the game. And I think, like, what Honzo was saying earlier about, using kind of common RPG tropes to kind of, lead you into one way, but then throughout the whole game, there's this, it uses that kind of knowledge. Like, if you've played RPGs before, you're like, oh, this is a box, or like, you go into the town and then you see, people's dressers and stuff, and you like check them out and open them, and like some of the dialogue boxes will be like, why are you going through people's stuff? That's weird, And like I really like how the game just uses like your your expectations against you. And there's so many instances of this and all throughout the game. But it also comes through in the plot too. A lot of the common plot elements that you expect, like you're in this town of monsters, you have to find your way out. It really just again flips the whole script and turns it upside down. Your first playthrough of the game, it's pretty, it's interesting, but it's pretty standard fare, right? But it's once you get into those other two routes, the pacifist and the genocide routes, where you're like, oh wow, like it really like just turns everything around. Spoiler alert, but that first intro that you see, at the introduction of the game, where you fall through the hole and stuff, through the genocide route, you learn that that's not actually you. That's actually a retelling of the past. That's what happened in the past, and is the original human who fell down for the very first time, and kind of was the whole catalyst of the whole story, and why Azrael is the way that they are, why Toriel and Asgore are separate, and why they aren't hanging out with each other anymore. And it's just wild, just the way that everything progresses, and seemingly minor characters, seemingly minor elements of personality traits of the characters. It's explained throughout the story as you go on. So it really captivated me, the way that it all came together.
Yeah, I really liked how at least so the way I played through it was mostly pacifist. Like once I realized that was an option, I didn't kill anything after that. I think that might have been in the ruins. But what you're talking about there, like learning that a kid falls in, the prince hangs out with him, like wants to be friends, but then the humans come for the kid, like, and sets off the whole war. Like, I did think that was pretty strong storytelling. What was the deal with Bones, or not Bones, Sans showing up in like at the end saying you'll be judged? Like, is there any explanation for why he of all people is there?
I mean, someone might have a better idea, better idea than me. But I know that Sans kind of breaks the fourth wall a little bit, kind of represents the game to a degree, I guess. And it's kind of they use Sans as a kind of like a vessel to deliver some to deliver the dialogue in regards to the monster XP points or whatever. Where in reality XP means like you're killing the monsters, like you're a murderer, right? Why he does that, I don't know.
Yes. Yeah. So Sans is kind of so like the whole thing with like the whole save state stuff, where you can like reset the game or save the game and stuff. It's kind of like, at least in the Undertale universe, it's like a power that certain characters can have. So the protagonist, Frisk, is one of the characters who has like enough determination to use this power. And the original human who fell down, I believe their name is like Kara or something.
Yeah.
There's another person who has that power, and later on Flowey is another person who has that power. And so every time that the game is reset or something, that's actually a character in the game doing that. And nobody, that's why like whenever you do reset the game, like the NPCs, they'll have like a fate, they'll be like something's different, or like something's weird. They can feel it, but they don't really know what's happening. But whereas Sans is like the only character who knows that the resets are happening, and Sans is kind of like the person who's really trying to protect everyone and trying to stop the antagonist Flowey from really just killing everybody. So yeah, that's kind of why at the end Sans is like, yeah, I know what's going on, like, and you'll be judged for it. Like he knows about the resets, and he knows that there are these paths that can go down.
Yeah, I sort of got a feeling that through repetition of having this story happen in the past, that Sans was kind of privy to there being something going on that was beyond his control, but affected everything around him. And thus, and plus, it just adds the mechanic of having a connection to the actual player themselves, which of course in itself is very interesting. So I think the purpose of him being there and being sort of one of the only ones in the know, but being a friendly face and someone who's kind of rooting for you was important from a storytelling perspective.
Yeah, I liked how with Papyrus, like I really like Papyrus's whole arc. Like he wants to capture you because you're a human and that's his duty. But then like once he sort of gets to know you through you solving his bad puzzles, like he sort of has a change of heart, but can't admit that he's having a change of heart. Like I just thought that character was written very, very well. And how Sans just like never, I don't know. It just felt like not that he like didn't like his brother, but he was just like, yeah, he's like this big dumb idiot, and like I love him, but I'm just not going to play into any of his jokes. I'm just going to make my own. I thought that was very nice.
So I was not good enough to get by Papyrus without getting captured however many times it is before he finally just lets you go. I think it's 3 times.
The capture zone.
I suck, but I had a great time playing it. So, but I love that the note changes every time you go back into his little poorly constructed, jail cell for you, and that like the second time he put hot dogs in like the little food tray for you and stuff. I don't know. There's certain little endearing qualities about this game that just really hit the mark, which is why one of the first words that I think of to describe it's wholesome. It is a wholesome game.
Yeah. So I was gonna wait. Actually, we'll do this when we talk about secrets. Did anybody have anything else to talk about with the plot? Any honorable mentions as far as characters or events that happened before we move into other stuff?
Well, I think it's cool that I don't know how prevalent it was when the game first came out. I know Nier Automata and the Nier games have done it before. But when Undertale came out, like the multiple playthroughs with different playstyles offering up different like endings sort of seemed to be pretty niche in regards to like gaming as a whole at that moment. I'm sure there are some, but I can't think of one in like the mainstream where like it offered like a really drastic tied to the story, like play multiple playthroughs.
Metal Gear Solid does it.
Yeah, that's true. But it doesn't technically tell you to do it after you beat the game, does it?
Right. That's true.
Yeah,
that is true.
And it doesn't like advance the plot because, like, as Hagure was saying, in the genocide route, you learn all this additional lore that is just like kind of wild, and they really use it as a vessel to advance the story, and not a lot of people get the full story as a result. So the fact that the base story is so endearing and good, and for people to love the game speaks to the overall quality of Undertale because there's still more under the surface.
Yeah, I kind of think of it like as Chrono Trigger's New Game Plus and the way you can get different endings depending on when you beat the final boss. Depending on what point of the story you beat it, but it's like that, but taken to an extreme, and again, just putting a whole bunch of layers on top of layers of how the plot progresses, all the characters together. And to me, that's just like one of the themes of this game is just like even in the music, there's a bunch of layers, the different sounds, the different tracks that play during certain parts of the game and during certain routes as well. It's just it all comes together, and it's like a beautiful, wholesome, but very intriguing sandwich.
Very intriguing sandwich.
I mean, I think the story goes as deep as you want it to go, but I mean, it's really interesting to sort of take a look at the world as a whole, where monsters. When you think of the word monster and what sort of the connotation behind the word monsters are, they got to be these terrible creatures. They have to be these sort of bloodthirsty machines that just want to kill, and in a sense, these monsters are trained and they are educated to believe that humans are indeed these terrible people. And I think that part of the reason why Papyrus is such a fun character to like is because you can tell that under the surface and under his training of being a soldier and to kill humans, to capture humans, kill humans, to look at humans as the enemy, he's just too good of a person to sort of defy what he really is. And in the end, I don't want to spoil anything, but I mean, in the end, of course, he's a good guy. and just to
feel
see
free to spoil anything,
right? But I mean, it's fun to see the struggle, the inner struggle of these characters. Like you said, even when he had sort of kept bringing you back to the sort of the makeshift jail cell, and the door's always open. Like, don't leave through the door, and thought you were gonna get hungry, so I'll have some hot dogs for you or whatever, like that sort of stuff. And even how he struggles with his own sexuality, you know what I mean, and just very human like qualities, but given to these monsters who, as humans, we're supposed to look at someone who's defined as a monster as something bad, and oppositely, monsters are forced to look at us as something bad, and we're sort of, we in a way as gamers are educated to even believe that these people are bad, and which is why a lot of us made the mistake of choosing to fight when not understanding what the purpose of that first fight with Toriel meant and what it was. Whether that was all by design, I don't know. I could ask, but and I think I will. But it whether it was intentional or unintentional, it just goes to show you how there's a lot of times, no matter who it is that you are talking to, no matter what conflict there is, or no matter what you've been taught throughout the years, you have the power to educate yourself and understand, and to sort of sit back and figure a situation out without having to use preconceived notions or what someone else taught you was the right way.
I just looked up what you guys are talking about as far as Papyrus's jail cell, because I did not see that. And for the longest time, sorry,
it's a god
Somebody's
gamer.
Good at the game.
Yeah, I am. But yeah, I always wondered what that little guest house was. Like I thought the key that you get later. I tried to use it on that door several times before realizing it was for the ghost next door, but in the other area. But yeah, I never knew that he put you in jail. That's really funny. Wow. Yeah. Okay. So I think this can segue nicely with what Kenny was saying. So we've talked a lot about the roots already. So I wanted to get into what was everybody's favorite characters in the game, either monsters, enemies, or just people.
I'm a big Asgore fan. I like Asgore a lot. The king who's like pretty good guy. He's just doing what he's necessary, and the fight with him, in which, at least the first fight, in which he destroys the mercy button, was like really cool.
Yeah,
I
really
loved
pulling
it.
the rug out from under you.
It's like,
I loved it.
Real.
And the music played into the moment as well, where it paused and then it turned up right afterwards, and then the sprite changed, and like, yeah, I was a big Asgore fan.
I loved Mettaton. I think Mettaton's my favorite character in the whole game. I just, every appearance by Mettaton was super enjoyable. As a broadcaster, I appreciate Mettaton as somebody that loves, the trivia shows and like just all of the sort of skewering of the media type stuff with Mettaton was great. The final fight with Mettaton I found incredibly challenging, which but still very enjoyable. I loved that character probably more than any of the others. He just was super fun, especially in the early going when it continues to sort of churn the game show elements into murderous intent.
Yeah, I mean, I'm an Asgore guy too. I was actually kind of shocked to hear that we had a fellow Asgore fan in the chat here.
I'm a man of culture.
There you go. I mean, huge Asgore fan. Great king, great message, great. I mean, I understand the hype, and I love Megalovania as a song. But I actually like Asgore themes as the best. It's probably my favorite boss theme in the game.
It is probably mine too, honestly.
And I do feel like his fight dynamic, of course, with the destruction of the mercy button, was probably the kind of like the biggest holy shit moment for me. Like that, and sort of Flowey's changing from being like 8-bit to like 16-bit plus. It's pretty cool.
Yeah, the destruction of the mercy button, that was like another, again, the mind fuck, because at that point in the game, if that's how you were going, it was like that was my bread and butter. So I really didn't know what to do, and it was funny is that I hadn't even really done the fighting, so I didn't even know how to do it well. Shocker. But we got through it.
Yeah, I mean, at that point too, they sort of set you up to really feel bad about what you've done. So I right away, as soon as the fight started, it's like, I'm not fighting you, man. Like I'm already pretty much mashing over to the right because I don't want to fight this guy. And
like,
he destroys the button, and it's like, there's got to be a way to bring it back, right? There's got to be a way to bring this button back. And I remember just feeling kind of terrible having to fight at that point.
Is there a way to not kill him?
He just kills you. You can? I can't remember what happens.
You eventually, I mean, you have to get his bar all the way down, which but then you have the final option to let him live.
I did it. Yes. Yeah. That is true. Yeah, right. And then Flowey comes in and takes care.
The first several times I just kept trying to
Yes. Yep. That's right. And that's what I did too. And that's also what makes Flowey such just an incredible villain throughout the entire game. Which again, I think is another real valuable life lesson too, is just you're sort of taught not to take everything at face value, or not taught to live your life based on what other people have on another narrative that someone has created for you. And to be compassionate and empathetic and sympathetic toward people. But then you have Flowey who comes along and he sort of shits on all of that. So there's sort of the complete antithesis of that, where it's like, maybe also sometimes you have to lay the hammer down when it comes down to it. It's very, and which is, I think, makes a great villain. Just there's no saving that thing. I remember when Flowey had dealt the killing blow, that I wanted nothing more than to kill Flowey more than anything. And I think that in the end, I really thought about destroying him, and I still saved him. And then he made me regret that as well. So that was really cool. And again, just it speaks to the writing of the stories and the characters and how they're, we talk about a favorite character in the game, but I think on the opposite side of the spectrum, I don't think we could talk about a character that you disliked or a character that you thought was boring or didn't serve a purpose. Everything, even all of every NPC served a purpose to tell a great story. Even random encounter enemies had like a sort of a story embedded within the game. For example, the two dog guards who had a secret crush on each other. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
and you wanted to help them resolve that. It was great.
Yeah, you got to get that armor off.
Right.
Literally.
Yeah, exactly.
You got to break down the walls.
Yes.
Yeah, for me, like talking about those NPCs, definitely my favorite character. Gotta give some shout outs to Napster Blue.
Yeah.
Just chilling, just straight up chilling. That's just whatever, man. Like, just walk over me if you want, man. Like, it's cool. Show up to his house, play some chill tunes. Think about life, yourself, the universe. Definitely. Like when I went to his house, laid down in the room, just listening to that vibe, and then all of a sudden the background fades away, and then there's all these like stars and galaxies, and I'm like,
that is one of the coolest moments from the game. I love that. I was like, I like to lie on the ground and feel like garbage. And I think going through this pandemic and everything and sheltering in place, I think all of us now, that line probably has even more special meaning for us, because I certainly have been there over this past year for sure.
I mean, it makes you wonder, kind of jumping ahead a little bit, I mean, what kind of influence the pandemic will have on the writing of Deltarune. Because I mean, Toby being in the process of creating that as we speak, and much like how Earthbound was a parody of current day events and all sorts of pop culture, Undertale as well is a parody of a lot of things that happen around us. So I'm curious to see how he implements what we've been dealing with for the past while into the story.
I really enjoyed Undyne. I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing that correctly, but I liked that encounter a lot, where, especially if you're doing it in a pacifist run, like, I didn't understand how the mechanics of the fight were working the first time, and I wound up dying well after I figured them out. But then I noticed that before I died, it was taking Undyne a long time to catch up to me every time I would run. But then when I restarted after dying, Undyne would be 5 steps behind me. Like, I could not get away from Undyne quick enough. I eventually did, but like it took so many more fights to make it happen. And I thought that was just like a really interesting change where like you were actually dealing damage to this being, and if you drop their health points low enough, they're going to be really slow to catch up to you. Like I thought that was just like a weird. That's not something most developers I think would think of. You know, it would just be like a binary. You run, okay, everything restarts. But no, it's like there is a persistent health bar that is affecting this boss in and out of combat. And I just thought that was really, really, really interesting. Plus, I like the whole relationship with Papyrus, like asking you over the phone, are you wearing a bandana? And if you lie to him, he says, wait, no, I knew you were wearing a bandana, so I told her anyway. It's just like, son of a bitch.
Yeah, that was a forehead smacking moment. I was like, oh,
yeah. He's like, I think he even says, like, I don't think you would lie to me, but I just thought maybe you forgot or something like that. And I was like, wow, this dude is just clueless. Yeah, that was really neat. That was definitely my favorite character. Also, the whole bomb diffusing sequence I thought was hilarious, where everything is a bomb, and there's like is it like a candle like blowing around the arena or something like that? It's like there's like a very tiny little speck that is also a bomb, and I think I finished that with like less than 1 second to spare.
Yeah,
but that was really fun. Also, I don't know if you guys ever did this, but in that cooking show sequence, if you leave after that encounter and then come back, the jar on the table that's sort of like you need the jetpack to get to, the jar will be back on the table, but then it says it's glued to the table, so like you would never have been able to get it anyway.
Oh man.
Yeah.
Did anyone give like what is the resolution with the piece of the snowman? Because I kept that with me the whole playthrough, and I you know, after I finished, you know, playing through the pacifist route or whatever, I didn't go back to talk to the snowman. So I was wondering if there was anyone on here that got any sort of resolution with that.
I put it in a room in the final area, thinking it was like an empty room that I came to. So I was like, oh, this looks like the spot. But then I used it and wound up just getting healed or eating it or something like that.
I think in the genocide route you can like take more and you can kill the snowman.
Oh no!
Yeah, you can just keep
awful.
taking, and only in the genocide
it's
route.
Like the giving tree.
Yeah, you can just keep like taking pieces, and I think they heal you or something. I forget.
Damn.
Yeah.
Wow,
so
brutal.
It's not as wholesome.
Not as
I don't know
wholesome.
what game you guys play.
That's funny. All right, I feel like we've spoken about graphics a good deal, and character design. It's funny the way these podcasts generally work is like we have a run of show and like topics we want to talk about, but then they all wind up bleeding into each other. So you just sort of move right along. Unless anybody has anything they want to say about the graphics or character designs or anything that they didn't get to yet.
I just wanted to add, you know, even though Metaton's my favorite, I really think like hats off to Toriel as well. Like her music, how she was written, the dialogue, again, how it sort of keys you off on the whole adventure. I actually wish that we had gotten more time in that, you know, beginning sequence with her, because it just, I don't know, it's that first like real big bond with the game that you're building. And I don't know, I thought Toriel was really well done, and the payoff is great. So I just really appreciated that character too.
Yeah, for sure. Like some of the others said, you know, like in that very first fight, you know, when, you know, you don't know about the game, and then you're just like, oh, you know, it's a boss, so I guess I gotta battle her. And I was just like, man, like what can I do to save her? You know, like I couldn't, in my first run, like I didn't figure it out either. I ended up you know, defeating her and killing her. But man, it's just the whole game, you know, I didn't need Sans to remind me how bad I felt about it. Like I felt bad the whole time. I was just like, oh man, like I did not want to do this. And especially, you know, with her boss battle music, like to me, that's my favorite track. Like it just hits so hard. So yeah, definitely Toriel is probably my second favorite. Like my favorite main character of the game. Yeah, it just hits so hard for her.
You took away his joke writing buddy. Sad times.
Yeah.
I think Kenny alluded to it earlier, but the game's art style coupled with the simple 8-bit graphics makes it super like rememberable, as well as like it stands out in the field, especially in games that it's kind of cliche, but a lot of games have been trying to push super realistic graphics, and then something like a Call of Duty or something is not very memorable. They're just dudes to a degree. But something with this, where the art style is so strong, it just makes it like super. It just sticks in your head, right? When you say a character's name or like a certain enemy, like you can instantly picture it just because of how strong the graphics are. They might not be technically that strong, but like Sundar plane or whatever, the airplane, it's pretty memorable. Yeah, so I think it's great.
Yeah, I think when discussing graphics and things like that, if you're trying to strive to be something that, again, can stand next to a game like Call of Duty, like you said, which goes for sort of a hyper realistic effect, you kind of get lost in the shuffle a little bit, and you become forgettable in that sense. Whereas in Undertale, using the minimalist approach, where these are 8-bit graphics, and again, a very unique art style where things are drawn in very simply, but by drawing them simply and keeping everything as clearly defined as it is in that style, things become more memorable in a way, because you know exactly how like a face looks, how a body looks, and the little bits of animation that maybe a character has, or an attack, or you remember it all. And that's also why I think that, even though for the people that think that the game might be too short, I do think the length of the game actually works to its benefit as well, because everything in it, I'd rather play a game that has no filler than have a lot of padding just to prolong the experience.
I think that's a great point, and I think the length is perfect too. If you actually take your time, and I think, as you already said, like every NPC, random monsters, they're all telling you something with intent. They're like, everything in it has intent, and so because of that, it feels very rich. It feels complete, and it feels just like an actual world that they've created that makes sense, even though it's absurd at times. So I completely agree with that about the length. If you take your time with it and interact with everything, you're going to be entertained for a long while.
It never overstays its welcome. Like every single area is like the perfect length almost. And it really, the flow of the game is really, really strong. You never feel like bored, or like you feel like you've been somewhere too long. All right, cool. Let's talk about the soundtrack. Soundtrack was, of course, composed by Toby Fox all by himself. I think, at least that's what the credits said. We've talked a fair bit about Megalovania, but were there any other standout tracks for folks? I know we've spoken about Toriel's theme, but anything else?
I mean, yeah, we spoke about Asgore's theme as well. I think Undyne's theme is incredible as well. Especially on the killing everyone route.
Genocide.
On the genocide route, yeah. Right, on the genocide route, I think Undyne's theme is incredible. Very good. And of course, on the pacifist route, the final battle with Flowey, really, really, really good. I use that as entrance music. My final match in Japan. So, yeah, very, very strong music across the board. Nothing that I could even say off the top of my head, which I thought like, oh man, turn this off, or I can't wait to end this battle.
Right.
Yeah. All really well done.
Was there any reason you chose that as your final song?
That would be enough of a topic to have it just a conversation in itself. But generally speaking, this is kind of, while I was going through a rough time, my final days in New Japan, I'd actually met Toby for the first time sort of later on in that year. I met him at the Tokyo Game Show that year, and we sort of developed like a real friendship, and he's to this day one of my best friends. And just being able to hang out with him, I was at a point where if I had downtime in Japan, I was so just kind of like beaten down, broken, mentally exhausted, that I wasn't doing anything. I wasn't enjoying this beautiful country that I had all around me. And but wanting Toby to enjoy his limited time in Japan, I kind of forced myself to get out and do new things with him. So it really helped us develop like a bond, and just in the end, like we had sort of discussed doing something real cool. So we kind of created and like we collabed to make an Undertale inspired like video story for my final match in Japan. And he sort of, he had heard sort of my hardships that I had been dealing with, and sort of relating it to the characters and the stories, and how could we write and animate something that would be representative of that. And we did. And I had said like, hey, like I don't want to step on any toes, but I'd love to use your music too if it was possible. And he's just such an easygoing, like carefree guy. Like he's not like, okay, yeah, sure, like talk to my people and you can use it for like a one-time $15,000 fee. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
he was just like, yeah, use it, go ahead, I don't care. He's like, my guys might be mad, but I'll just say I don't care. And if anything, like he suggested that I use I don't know the pronunciation of it, but like Gam Metal guy who like remixes a lot of his stuff. He does like a lot of like video game like hard rock covers.
Mm-hmm.
And he's like, yeah, no, I think you should use this one would be great. And he said like, yeah, if anything, like I don't care about my music, but I think you should use his, so could you ask him for permission? And of course he was super cool with it too. So yeah, a lot of emotion and meaning to it, not just for my current situation in Japan at that time, but also just because I met this real cool dude that became a real good friend that really sort of changed those dark times that I was having in Japan at that moment. So I was just real proud, and to be able to rep Undertale and to have him have his blessing for me to use it, and just everything. It really wrapped it up and kind of made it fitting of my final battle in Japan.
That's a really nice story.
It speaks to the power of the soundtrack, right? You can have so much meaning. I mean, one of the reasons I started to learn piano was because of Asgore's theme, just because I enjoyed it so much.
Oh yeah, that intro, right?
Yeah. So, cool. Like, the soundtrack, in my opinion, is like incredible. Up there with some of Uematsu's work, right? And it's just crazy to think that a Kickstarter game produced like this amazing soundtrack that also is really integrated into the game itself, and then it pulls from the game's story, its dialogue, and suffuses it with meaning and all that stuff. And yeah, can't say enough good things about the soundtrack.
Yeah, and I mean, like, even Toby's work outside of Undertale. I remember I never played the game, but on one of the newer Pokemons that was released, he did one of the battle themes.
Yeah.
And I was just like, I listened to it and I thought like, how does he just does these things so easily. It was such a great battle theme that really like encapsulated how a Pokemon battle feels. So it's not just, he doesn't just have that talent and a knack for finding and writing things appropriate to his own work. He is able to suit it for other things too. He's just a great, and he has no musical background. It's all on his own. He taught himself, self-taught.
Oh, really? Wow.
Yeah, it's so
That's amazing.
Yeah, he actually his work inspired me to start writing my own stuff. So I have a couple tracks that I helped create. There's like kind of a tidbit. Like I mean, like what my tag team music in New Japan before leaving, that was written by me, and Toby like inspired me to give it a go and try it myself. And yeah, it's and I was like, man, like I was now sitting there with Toby. I remember we were just eating like a burger at some place that I used to hang out in like way back in the day, and I was like, man, I'm super like, I want to talk to you about music, but I'm so embarrassed because I don't know the notes. He said I can only like make like guitar noises with my mouth, and he's like, how do you think I do it? I was like, what? And he's like, yeah, says I just come up with stuff. He's like, I don't really, I'm not technical, like I don't really know it. I said, oh, what genres of music did you like? And he's like, I just like video game music. That's it. I don't really listen to anything else. So just for him to have such a grasp on sort of the range of music, because it's not just one genre of music. I mean, if you listen to, Asgore's theme, in comparison to Toriel's theme, in comparison to Metatons, in comparison to Megalovania, I forget the name, but Spider Lady. You know what I mean? It's all very different.
Muppet,
yeah. Right. Yep. And then then you think like, okay, well that's maybe all his own work, so he's taken an excess amount of pride in that, and who knows how long he studied and worked on, and who knows what kind of outside help he got none. And then when guys are like, hey, got an opportunity, you want to write a song for Pokemon? Okay, sure, just pumps it out like that. And it never felt like, oh, this was pulled from Undertale and it's in Pokemon. You would, if someone didn't tell you it was Toby Fox writing it, you would just go, this is just a great battle theme. Yeah, so just a great natural musician. Definitely, it's a lot like, actually, and you guys being fighting game dudes. I mean, it's like the Guilty Gear guy, is Daisuke?
Yeah.
Just has a knack for not just writing music, but for video game stuff as well.
Wow, I see now why Seglia invited you to talk about this game. You have a very, very deep story with this game, man. It's very nice.
Well, I mean, I don't think anyone really knew, but I mean, it's just it. Even if I didn't know him, Toby as a person, and even if he wasn't a friend, I still have a strong opinion of the game itself. But it does help that, it's sort of magnified by my own experiences with the individual who's kind of always shrouded in mystery. He doesn't like being in the spotlight at all.
Cool. So this actually brings me, you bring up Muffet, the Spider Woman, brings me into the next sort of area that I want to talk about, which was gameplay and the battle system in particular.
Yeah.
So for me, I think Muffet was probably the biggest spike in difficulty in terms of doing a pacifist run, because you just have to survive for a while. And I was like very happy. I think it took me maybe 3 attempts. But I was very happy to be able to survive that and successfully not kill her. But were there any other encounters that stood out to you guys?
Wait, did you say 3 attempts on Muffet?
Yeah.
It took me like way more than that to get by
Muffet was rough. And I remember going to my first battle, I was like, I don't have nearly enough curative items to do this.
Yeah.
I had to go back. I went back to the lobby. The hotel. I don't know what you would call that, but that lobby with the weird bake shop.
Yeah.
I bought a bunch of items there.
I think I loaded up on hot dogs from Sands. I had to leave though. I couldn't get by her without way more potions or whatever you want to call them.
Yeah.
I found that Muffet and Undyne on Genocide Run was just like, holy shit! Undyne. Like, boy, like I'm really pissed off the wrong people.
Yeah, I think a lot of the Genocide ones were rough because it's like the EX hard mode,
Right.
Honestly, I think the Mettaton fight, just because of the mechanic with the like the ratings.
Yeah, that was cool.
Trying to figure that out, alongside the battle, and like you had to basically learn on the fly if you were trying to go for one go, and I really like that, and it just added they do it a lot in regards to like adding a new mechanic in a fight. Just kind of just throw it at you, especially if you're not trying to kill them, especially like with the battle mechanics. I don't know what to call it, where you have to jump around and avoid stuff, but every fight's kind of different.
Yeah.
One thing that I will say. Oh no, go ahead. You go ahead.
Oh no, I was just gonna say like the timing of that one was really tough, but I really appreciated the actions that you could choose in that fight. What was it like? It was boast, pose, or heel turn. Heel turn. So I've definitely popped for that, seeing that on there.
One thing that I really appreciate, and I think it kind of goes unsung a little bit, is that I'm not sure the ages of everyone in this discussion right now, but for me, I grew up playing, and not only in the arcades, but on console, like a ton of shoot 'em ups, and it's all but a dead genre. And I feel that people praised Undertale's battle system for being something so unique, and in an RPG for sure it was unique and fresh, but I loved that it sort of brought back a love and appreciation for sort of shoot 'em ups and dodging bullets and using the movement of your character to avoid damage and things like that. So it was kind of like a double whammy for me to play a great RPG in a classical style, but then also fight in a way that I hadn't fought in for a long time, which reminded me of playing games like whatever Thunder Force or whatever Darius, things like that. So real cool.
Yeah. Even in the Muffet fight, you're basically playing Frogger for the vast majority of it.
Yeah. That's right.
A good mix of those classic arcade games for sure.
Yeah. For me, like I'm always a sucker whenever I see kind of like mishmash of genres, especially when it's like shmups or rhythm games. Like seeing those in other games, I'm like, oh, okay, yeah, like let me check this out, right? And like when it came to my first impression of the game, like I thought like, oh, maybe this is kind of why it's getting a lot of shine and stuff. And I, just going into it and just like seeing screenshots, I was like, oh, like it's cool. It does kind of look like it's just kind of like mashed together. But once you realize like, oh, it's not just that, like there's like story, there's a reason why, like story, and then like, the whole, especially like when the wall, when you're playing Flowey and he breaks the walls, right? And all the pellets are just like coming at you. You're like, whoa, this is like, it's like super integrated into the game. And it's like, it made it even stronger for me. And so, like I understand like it's not for everyone, like especially like me too, like I grew up on shmups and stuff. So like I love that. But I can understand, it's not for everybody, and it can be a little bit difficult. But yeah, I just thought it was executed pretty well. Like, especially when it came versus my first impression of it. Like it just like evolved, and then the way like there's like blue things and different colored things on the way you can dodge through them, and then the different patterns that came up that was really tied with the character itself, right? Like it wasn't just random patterns. Like you could imagine like you're playing Papyrus, like these bones are coming at you, right? And like some of the bones just like don't make any sense, and it's because it's Papyrus, right? So yeah, I thought it was really really cool how they handle that. Yeah, Toby did a really bang up job on that one.
Yeah, you're sort of playing that in the Papyrus fight. You're sort of playing that. If you're ever like not connected to the internet and you open Chrome, you play that like dinosaur jumping game.
Yeah.
That was sort of what that fight was to me. I really liked Flowey at the end, although I would say a solid 2 or 3 deaths. I thought it was all scripted. Like when all that shit started coming up on the screen, I thought there was no way I should be like, there's no way they're expecting me to actually fight this thing. Like this has to be not a joke, but like they probably want me to die to this.
Yeah.
And then when I realized, oh no, like you really have to do this, I was like, oh shit.
I had kind of the opposite but same idea where I was like, this is probably scripted so I can't die. That's why I'm not dying. But I just kept getting to pixel life every single time. And then I watched someone else do it. They died, and I was like, oh shit. I was like, how did I survive? I was like, what the hell?
Yeah, once I got past like into the first, I guess, like soul section where the mechanics sort of change a bit, and then you get the healing items, I was like, oh, okay, I actually do have to do this, but they're giving you a little bit of help at the end of each section. But that was really tough. And then he like loads save states on you and like just totally messes with you. That was probably one of the most creative boss fights I've seen in a very long time.
Yeah, and speaking of items, like I'm the kind of RPG player. Like I never use items. Like I'm always like, oh, I'll save this mega elixir for a hard battle, and then just like never use it, and I'll end up the game with like 10 of them or something, right? So like in this game, like I didn't really initially use items and stuff until my later playthroughs, and just learning, like some of the items are like kind of jokey, right? But like they're jokey in a useful way a lot of the times, like I forget, you get like a stick from somewhere, right? And you can always use the stick against a dog to like just like have the to mercy and like end the boss fight right there, because the dog would just go and chase the stick or something like that. And like, and then what was the other one? Oh yeah, and then you can use the stick in the not the Sans fight, the Papyrus fight. And Papyrus will do the same thing. He'll go and chase the stick, and he'll bring it back in his mouth. And you're like, wait, what?
Whoa.
Yeah, so it's really interesting. Then speaking of Muppet, at the very beginning, there's that spider bake sale like thing.
Yes.
Yeah,
And you're like, I'm not going to spend all my money on this. Like, it seems useless, right? But if you actually do buy something there, and then you use the item in the spider fight, she'll be like, oh, you're a supporter. Like, oh, great. Yeah, okay, yeah, that's it. Boss is over.
It just ends it, just bypasses it completely.
Yeah. So at the end of that fight, I bought something from like the very first bake sale, but that message did not come up until way late in that fight.
I think it's because you have to buy that super expensive item. There's one item I think that's more expensive than others.
It's like super. Yeah, you're like, I don't need that. Yeah.
Yeah, you wouldn't want to grind for money just to come back to that bake sale to use it on one item, but it's got a purpose.
Interesting. So, does anybody have anything they want to mention about gameplay before we move into the secrets discussion?
I'm all good.
No, I'm good. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. So it's a good segue talking about all these little intricacies and interactions. There's a big secret with WD Gaster. Did anybody actually run into him at all?
So
I did not.
I mean, it's funny this is a part of the Reddit show because I believe Gaster has an astronomically low chance of spawning. Like it's 1% out of 100 runs or something. Like it's like super duper hidden Easter egg essentially. And like he does have a story to a degree, but yeah, there are it is like kind of random in regards to him appearing. And honestly, the only reason I know that he exists is because I believe Super Llama as a YouTuber did a video in regards to the Undertale fandom and how it kind of spawned like alternate universes. Shout out to Obama for telling me about it. And they have like so many there's like 5 to 10 like enormous like alternate universe Undertale communities, and they all have incredibly high quality like art and like animations and storylines. And Gaster is like a big thing in those alternate universes because they're like hidden, but like they only have like 2 lines or something in the game, and like kind of it's just like almost like an Easter egg. It speaks to how big the game is, where this character that is like incredibly rare and incredibly like unknown can spawn like a shitload of alternate fandoms and stuff like that.
Yeah. Like I didn't really know about Gaster until like way later, like pretty recently, and I was like, oh, interesting. And then like when I looked into it, so apparently like you know how the game like keep tracks of your save and stuff. There's another thing that it keeps track of, and it's kind of like this random value that's assigned at the start of every game, and it's called the fun value. So like a lot of times, like sometimes you'll get these random phone calls from characters on your cell phone. That's determined by like what your fun value is. It's like 1 to 100 or something. And yeah, every time you play the game, you start off with a new one. And like for Gaster, like it's like there's only one value, like where you can see Gaster. Like with a lot of the other things, there's like a range. Like if you have like a fun value of like 50 to 70, then you'll get this random phone call or something. But like with Gaster, it's like just one number. So it's like pretty, yeah, like Honzo was saying, it's like you're most likely not going to run into this character unless you like go into the game, like the actual game like .exe and like manually edit a value to match like what it's supposed to be. So
what determines or impacts your fun value? Do you know?
For the most part, it's just random. There's a few things that can manually set it, like some of the NPCs that happen like very rarely. They're like, I don't know, they're called like Gaster's followers or something like that. Like once you see them, then it'll set the fun value to 0, like always, every time, just so that you can't like see them again. Like if you leave the room and come back, they'll be gone. But other than that, yeah, it's all just random.
Interesting. Very interesting.
Yeah, but yeah, a lot of the secrets, and that's another one of the layers of the game, right? Is like there's all these like little secrets and Easter eggs in there. Most of them are just for fun, like the yeah, like the prank calls and stuff like that. But yeah, like Honzo was saying, like some of them has spawned this like deep lore, and I feel like especially these days, like you can't really talk about Undertale without talking about the huge like fan community. And the whole like a lot of times you'll have games where they have like a big kind of fan community and fan lore and stuff, but like Undertale is like the whole like universe, like yeah, like Hanzo was saying, universe is just planned out and really well developed, really. And yeah, it'll be interesting to see like with Deltarune, how if those kinds of fan theories and fan universes has like any comes back into the game and into the storyline.
I know this isn't necessarily a secret, and maybe I wrote this down like while I was playing it, and I couldn't really think of where to talk about it, but there was an area of the game where there are like flowers that overhear conversations and like repeat, the last thing they heard. Did anybody else get reminded of Super Mario RPG with that, with the wishing stars on Star Hill?
Oh yeah, wow.
Where they repeat stuff.
Yeah, it all felt very similar to that.
It might be a reference, to be honest.
Yeah, that's how I felt. Like it was sort of the same sort of concept.
But yeah, I believe I'm trying to remember the exact sequence, like before in the Undying area. It's kind of used as like isn't one of them used as to tell a story about like a monster couple at one point?
Yeah, one of them has a wish they think is stupid, but then it's like the same wish as the other one.
Yeah, and that kind of relates to something Kenny said a lot earlier in regards to the monsters, having a lot of human qualities, and kind of reinforces it in that area.
Any other secrets or Easter eggs anybody found or felt like they found?
If you get beat 3 times by Papyrus, he'll just let you go.
Speedrun hack.
Yeah, kind of going off of the flower thing, it reminded me of like sometimes if you'll leave a screen and then go like right back to the next or the previous screen, you'll just see Flowey like on the edge of the screen and then disappear real quick.
I thought I saw that.
Yeah, and then the first time I saw it, I was like, oh, like it must be just some kind of glitch, right? Like I was like, oh, just whatever, fan game, whatever. And then it happened again, and I was like, whoa, like that, it's super spooky. And then it's just this little Easter egg, but it makes sense from a storyline because that's like how Flowey knows what you're up to, like knows like who you're killing and stuff. Because Flowey's just following you out throughout the whole game, right? And it's just like, whoa, like yeah, it didn't hit me until I got to the very end, where Flowey comes up against Asgore, and I'm like, oh shoot, like yo, like it's really, that wasn't just a glitch, that was like an actual thing, right? I was like, man, that's wild. That's wild.
There's also those cameras hidden throughout the game, where the I forget his name, but the scientist guy is like actually like recording your progress and watching you. Alphys, yeah. Anything else? Any other secrets, Easter eggs?
I didn't do it myself, but I did see that puzzle that Metaton like faces or puts against you, that's like pretty much impossible to do. I did see somebody on YouTube like actually like finish it, and then you do just get like a little cutscene or a little line of dialogue that's like, oh yeah, no, congratulations, like how'd you do that? You probably like cheated or something like that.
I tried mad hard to complete that.
Couldn't do it.
Does anyone know, like in the Metaton fight, when it's the essay question, is there any sort of hack to what you're supposed to say there that maybe gets you bonus points or something like that?
I have read that there are a lot of different permutations of what you can put there, and it will affect the ratings, but there's no like, there's nothing crazy like an instant win or anything like that. It's just, and it also looks for keywords. Like if you comment on his legs,
yep,
you're like, yeah, these are the best legs
that's
in show
the
business.
correct answer.
Like no kidding. Okay, good deal. That's awesome.
Yeah.
I think you can also put in Toby, and then it'll be like, ooh, that's like a sexy name.
Nice. Very nice. All right, cool. So I think to close this out, we should talk about Toby Fox's next project, which is Deltarune. Episode 1, or like a demo of the game, is now available for PC. Has anybody played it?
I have, yes.
What are your thoughts? Well, actually, before you get into thoughts, can you sort of tell us what sort of game it is, what it's about, or what it seems to be about? Like, give us a synopsis.
Wait, don't tell me I'm the only person who's actually got my hands on it. Am I the only one?
I've not played it yet.
Public, but
I've been waiting for it to fully be out so I can play it.
Okay, so I don't want to speak out of my ass because it's so hard to know what it is, because it is essentially setting the table for what the story will become, or setting the table for what the story will become in future episodes. But it seems to be within the monster universe again. And when I played the intro to the episode 1, I sort of, it reminded me a lot, and I don't know if, again, this would have to, well, has anyone here played the Mother 3 fan translation, or just Mother 3 in general, even if it was in Japanese?
Mm-hmm.
Anybody here? No?
Yeah.
Okay. So it reminded me of near the end of the game, when you travel to New Pork City, how you get in the boat and there's all of those sort of relics from Earthbound along the way,
Okay. Yeah.
along like the stream, and it plays to like the remixed Pollyanna theme.
Mm-hmm.
The intro to episode 1 of Deltarune reminded me of that, showing sort of the town, and that's what these characters are up to, and that's what these characters are up to, and it just really very heartwarming to see them sort of exist and interact in this world. Then you play the game, and it sort of takes a different form, a little bit of a graphical upgrade. The battle system is different this time around, but it's great, still very good. A little more classical, and game ends off with a very it's a very sort of grim ending, where the main character like rips his own heart out. So it's that's what it is, right? I played it as soon as it came out. If my memory serves me correctly, it rips his own heart out, and it kind of ends. I think it's fade to black from there.
Yeah, I haven't actually played it necessarily, but I know that it does try and set up like an entire new game, like, and this is like the first chapter.
Yeah.
And then correct me if I'm wrong, but the gameplay is kind of like you have party members now and
You
stuff
do.
like
Yep.
that. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. You have weapons, party members, yeah, all that stuff.
Yeah, I'm super interested in it. I just don't want to psych myself up and play the first chapter and then have to wait. Kind of like, I guess it's Netflix. I want to binge the shit out of it once it comes out. So that's why I'm kind of
that's totally understandable. No, but it is very good. Music is what you've come to expect from Toby. Graphically, very great artwork, but it's familiar, but you can tell it's a little bit improved upon. And by improved upon, I just mean it's more of like a 16-bit than an 8. Yeah, I mean the world was fun to be a part of. Meeting Toriel and Asgore, and there's like a flower shop or whatever, and very, very, very good.
I'm super excited for it just because, like, coming from Undertale and then getting that success, and then I know people's reaction to Deltarune is really positive.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm just waiting for it to be out so I can play it, and like I don't have to feel like how I feel currently about Final Fantasy VII Remake, where I have to wait till I have 6 kids in order to finish the entire episodic series. But yeah, I'm looking forward to it, and I've heard some of the soundtrack from the first chapter, and it's fantastic. So I mean, probably just more bangers coming out.
Cool. So in closing, why don't we just go around the horn and everybody give their final impression of Undertale? Anything that you didn't get to mention, feel free to throw it in there, and then we'll close it out. Kenny, why don't we start with you?
Sure. I mean, quite simply put, if I were to have a conversation about top games that I've ever played, sort of changes with the times, changes by the mood. But I mean, there would be days when I would say Undertale is probably one of my favorite games of all time. Top 1, 2, or 3. So I would urge everyone to play it if what we've talked about today sounds like something that's interesting.
Yeah, I appreciate again the characters, the storytelling, how quickly it because it is so meticulously prepared that you get attached to things and bought into what they're going on. And I just want to say I really appreciated this conversation because it Game Club showing sort of shared experiences from the game, unique experiences from the game, like different interpretations. I think it speaks to the strength of the whole Undertale presentation. So yeah, like Kenny said, encourage people to play it.
I think, overall, yeah, everyone's saying play the game, and I do support that. But if you're not going to play the game for whatever reason, I think that you should do yourself service and listen to the soundtrack at least once, or at least maybe even some of the boss fights if you're it's not your cup of tea, because I think it's one of the masterpieces that video games have produced in regards to OSTs, similar to like a Final Fantasy VII, where it's just like it doesn't matter how you feel about the game, it's like undeniable that this is like peak human creation in my opinion. So I really urge people to listen to the soundtrack, and the soundtrack will only be strengthened if you play the game, just because there's so many connections in regards to the music and the
Absolutely.
story. Also, shout outs to Bratty and Caddy.
Oh yeah,
real ones. Yeah,
they found a gun in the dumpster.
Hell yeah, it's my kind of gals.
But you?
Yeah, pretty much what Honzo said. Yeah, the game's amazing. The soundtrack for me, it just, I mean, I always love game music in general, but Undertale is just really on point. And yeah, like everyone said, if you haven't played the game, definitely try to pick it up. It's a really short game, even with the multiple playthroughs. You could probably, blow past it within, 6 to 8 hours, if that. If you're really good at like RPG kind of style mechanics, or like rhythm game kind of stuff, maybe even sooner than that. But yeah, like I know for me, like I said earlier, I came to the game kind of late, after it had already blown up, and I was kind of skeptical, it is it really worth the hype? People are like, especially when it comes to Undertale, like I was saying before, the fandom is very, they're very enthused about this game, right? So it's kind of like it put me off at first, but yeah, when I played it, it definitely lived up to the hype for me. The story, all the things that we talked about before, when it comes to the story, the music, the gameplay, even the like kind of graphics and stuff, it just all comes together really well, and it's a really really well put game. Yeah, I would go even further than Hanzo and say, like, if you don't want to play the game, then you can just watch like a let's play or something through it. And I think even then it's it's pretty exciting. You'll get a laugh out of the corny jokes and stuff. And yeah, it's a pretty interesting watch. I know my partner, who usually doesn't have any interest in video games at all, she enjoyed me watching me play, and she was like, "Oh, this game's kind of funny. It's kind of cute." So yeah, that would be my recommendation.
So I got to say, like, going into this conversation, I was pretty lukewarm on the game. I thought the combat was really interesting, and being able to not kill anything. I enjoy pacifist style games, and I like that sort of puzzle aspect of it, including just the regular like bullet hell style combat of like just avoiding attacks. I thought that was very nice. I thought the story was pretty somber, but good. But I don't know, like a lot of I didn't understand the hype of this game, and like I'm hesitant to say that I understand it now. I think it's very good, and I'd recommend it to anybody. But I don't know, maybe because I haven't played all the routes and like gone into the lore and everything, it just seems like, yeah, that was a good game, and I'm going to move on. But I think this conversation really helped sort of paint the full picture, and I'm tempted to go back and give it another shot. But yeah, it I don't know, like there are parts of it that I liked a lot, but others that I found sort of not forgettable, but just mediocre, I guess. I don't know. Yeah, but I think I'll play it again and see the rest of it for sure based on this conversation. So thanks, guys.
Play the pacifist route for the Tenno Game Club.
Yeah, I did that mostly until once I learned that it existed. But I guess my ending wasn't what it should have been if I did it completely pacifist. All right, cool. Well, in closing, I have been Sweet Johnny Cage for the Tenno Game Club podcast for Undertale. On behalf of the entire panel, thank you so much for listening, and we will see you next time. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Peace out.
See you.
Later.